We are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicenda. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, which is a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy in the Bardic College of Content Creation. I am super excited to sit down tonight and continue our actual play of The Between. But before we get into that, Jason, is there anything cool happening in the world of The Between right now?
There are some cool things happening at the Between HQ. So we're going to be launching the Between crowdfunding on BackerKit September 24th. The plan is we are going to fund 3 books for the Between series, plus an extra special reward I'll talk about in a minute. But the 3 books we're going to be funding for this crowdfunding are the core rules of the Between, a second book called Shadow Society, and a third book called Sons of Another World. And I want to, if it's okay, Tony, I want to talk about them just a little bit.
Yeah.
So the core book, The Between has been around for 3 years. We released it originally in 2021. I actually started developing it in 2018. And for people who don't know the story, The Between was in development before Brindlewood Bay. And Brindlewood Bay was a sketch for The Between. I wanted to test out my mystery system, and so I created a smaller game in order just to try out the mystery solving part. That's where Brindlewood Bay came from. But of course, Brindlewood Bay was kind of its own little phenomenon, and so it got released and became a thing. But all the while, The Between was there, getting better, learning the lessons of Brindlewood Bay, and indeed Brindlewood Bay took a lot of lessons from The Between in its eventual Kickstarter release. And so this game's been out for a few years. It's been in development for about 5 years, or 6 years really. And we've had so much time and so many opportunities to see people playing this game. Our Discord, literally every single day, I see a new person talking about the campaign that they're in and like what happened in their game, right? And so between the games I've run, between the games I've watched people like Alex Rubitsky run, or like some other streams I've seen, or just from people I've talked to, we've learned a lot about the Between, and we are going to make this BackerKit edition of the Between the ultimate version of the Between. We're taking everything we've learned about this game, everything we've learned about Carp from Brindlewood game design, and everything I've learned about just game design in general, and marketing for that matter, and we're going to put it together to make a bigger, revised version of the game. We are changing how the mastermind works. We're changing how Hargrave House, the actual house itself, works. We are going to refresh some of the playbooks, in particular, fiddle with a couple of the moves that have always been sort of maybe not as perfect as I would like them to be. And we're going to make this the ultimate version of the Between. And so in that core book, you're going to get the revised and expanded rules. You're going to get the 6 core playbooks, and you're going to get, I think it's 11 threats, the original 10 that I wrote, plus the King in Shadows, which was written by Alex. And so that's going to be the core book. The second book is Shadow Society. Now, one of the nice things about the way we do things is we keep supporting our games after their digital release with new releases, new content, new scenarios, new playbooks. And The Between was no exception. In fact, we released it in seasons. We did season 2, season 3, and season 4. And basically what we're going to do with Shadow Society is we're going to take all the material from season 2 and season 3 and put those in Shadow Society. So that is 2 more playbooks, the Legacy and the Unquiet, and then about 10 more threats, and then a new mastermind in Admiral Flag. I forgot to mention the mastermind before. The core book has Theodora. So that's going to be Shadow Society. Now, I suspect we're going to have an opportunity to do stretch goals in this crowdfunding if everybody comes through. And so every time we open up a brand new threat as a stretch goal, a brand new playbook as a stretch goal, and we have a bunch of them lined up, they're going to get dropped into Shadow Society. So Shadow Society will be a nice big full book by the end of the campaign, hopefully. So hopefully we'll see Jazad, we'll see Titania, we'll see the Selkie, and some of the other things. Plus, we have a lot of brand new stuff that we have not yet talked about. For example, I'll give you a little preview. We have a fantastic playbook by Jack Hargreaves that is inspired by Pinocchio and the Life of P video game, a kind of like mechanical automaton type character. So that is what's going to be hopefully ending up in Shadow Society. And then I think perhaps most intriguing is the third book, Sons of Another World. What we did with the Between in the early days of it is we started exploring like other settings. And so we released Ghosts of El Paso, which is almost as well loved as the core game. People like a lot of people play Ghosts of El Paso. Ghosts of El Paso set a few years after the Civil War in the brand new township of El Paso, Texas, and there's ghosts that. Every 6 years, ghosts enter the land because of this weird red moon that happens, and the Wounded Knight they call it. And we had a lot of luck with that. And what it was basically Ghost of El Paso like takes all of the rules of the Between. It works identically to the Between, but it just has new playbooks, new threats, and a different mastermind, and sets it in a new setting. Sons of Another World is going to have Ghosts of El Paso in it, also revised, but we're also adding two brand new campaign settings to Sons of Another World. One of them is Court of Wolves, which is my follow up to The Between, and which was very strongly cameoed and hinted at last time we played. But basically, it takes place in Versailles. You play internal security at Versailles, and you are trying to save the Sun King from an individual called the Moon King, who is supported by a bunch of decadent French nobles, devil worshippers, and werewolves. So that's kind of the deal there. And then the third campaign setting is Unsinkable, which was written by our own Wesley Franks. Wes, you want to tell us what Unsinkable is?
Yeah, the Unsinkable was a weird little brain worm that I had where I was just like, what if we took the Between and put them on a boat in the middle of the North Atlantic and a a transatlantic like crossing. And it is a fully insular game, but also we're making it so that you can potentially, with a little bit of retrofitting, take other playbooks and put them into it. But you could also probably take those playbooks and put them into other campaigns that you want to. Maybe if you're creative, but you all are. But yeah, you all play members of the ballast class, or a class of passengers that have all drawn straws, and you've all got the short straws, and you were essentially there to make sure that the RMS Kronos, which is a British passenger liner operated by the Black Star Line, makes its destination from London, England to New York City. The thing is that it has not been designed to make it to its destination in New York City because there is a mastermind at the very heart of the ship trying to utilize it and other ocean liners like itself to raise a deep drowned ancient evil from beneath the depths of the ocean. And this mastermind may or may not have connections to another mastermind from the Between. There are going to be fantastic playbooks, including the captain of the ship, the Faithful, which is a priest that has a demonic lover. You have the Stoker, which is a elemental from Eastern Europe that has stowed away on the ship as a worker of it that is just shoveling coal, and also, a big sturdy guy. You've got the Socialite, which is a very talented Mr. Ripley-esque character that has stolen the identity of a rich person and is on board and is being chased by the rich person's heir. There's also the Stowaway, which is a former member of the French Foreign Legion who may or may not be a ghost. And then finally, we have the Doctor, who is a brilliant surgeon who has chosen to leave, who has been assigned to leave Europe to go and take care of a family across the ocean. But the thing about this surgeon is, like many doctors in the Between, is connected by one hive mind. All the doctors in Europe are connected by one hive mind, and so as they slowly are pulling away from Europe, they're slowly feeling themselves become untangled, untethered from this hive mind. And so it's about losing yourself and what's left. Is it just the medicine or not? We've got fantastic threats, I think. including doppelgangers on board the ship. There's a perfect storm that has no sign of stopping. There's also a ghost ship, and one of my favorite threats, there's an iceberg that
I
follows the
love the
ship
iceberg.
no matter where it goes. That was very much inspired by Duel by Steven
Mm.
Spielberg. It's just this iceberg that follows the ship, and you have to solve it. It's very cool. The game is very much designed to where the ship has this kind of like amorphous quality where it shifts and changes as you go and play through it, especially if you hit layer 4. So I hope everybody like attaches themselves to it and plays it and like really does love it. It's really my love letter to the Between, and I'm so thankful that I'm being able to like present it to all of you. So I'm stoked. I can't wait.
It's really awesome. I'm so excited about it. And also, again, if we do well enough in the campaign, we have a couple of other Sons of Another World ready to go. I don't want to say too much about them yet, but we do have at least 2 more that we would like to get in that book if we can raise enough money. So, one other thing, another reward that will be available on this campaign. This is the last thing I'll say, Tony, is we always like to have like a special thing. And our special thing for the Between is going to be what we're calling, we're bouncing between names still, but I'm calling them the Mastermind Dice. And the Mastermind Dice are a set of 12 dice in a collectible box. They are the colors associated with each of the masterminds, principally Theodora and Flag, but there's also colors in there for Titania and Jizad under the assumption we're going to unlock them as stretch goals. But in any case, 4 beautiful. There's basically 3 dice for each in each color. There's these sort of jewel tone colors, but most fun. The dice have a day and night phase. So at night, in the dark, the dice glow. So that's pretty cool. And so the Mastermind dice are going to be available. The Mastermind dice are going to be a fairly limited reward, and we don't think they're going to last long. So we recommend backing the campaign as soon as you can, so you can get those. So yeah, that's our campaign. We're really
Back
excited about
early, back often. Classic,
it. Yeah.
classic backer behavior.
Hmm.
But I'm super excited about it. If you haven't headed over to BackerKit yet to follow the campaign, you should do so right now. We've updated the link at the bottom of the stream. ttrpg.link/BetweenGame will take you right there. It should. I did it right before the stream. I didn't test it. Somebody let me know, but it looked like it all went through. It's also down in the description if you are watching this on YouTube later or pretty much anywhere, because it should put the description in with it. You should be able to just click it. But I'm super excited. Been looking forward for this for years, and super excited to see it finally all coming together. Awesome. Well, that is some of what's coming up with the Between, but it's not what we're doing tonight. Tonight we're going to play the Between. So, Jason, do you wanted us to get a little caught up on things? I believe.
Yeah,
Where do we
I
want to
actually
start?
had like a really specific plan for tonight. I don't know how much play we're going to get done, but we're definitely going to be talking a lot. So I suspect that next session we are going to probably finish up our last threat, which is the King in Shadows. And then after that, we will be doing the confrontation with Theodora. And so, in order to ensure that I have enough time to plan the confrontation with Theodora, I want to spend this week sort of recapping the campaign, maybe with chat's help, like kind of recalling different things from the campaign, things we want to be reminded of. And most importantly, I want to answer the mastermind question. And here again, I would like chat's help on that. I think it'd be fun if we got everybody involved. We want to figure out what Theodore Brathwaite has been up to this entire time in the background. We've been really strongly hinting at certain things, but we're gonna make it a die roll because that's basically how the new version of the game will work. It's not going to be quite the same as we did it because it's something I developed in the middle of this campaign, but basically the idea is these mastermind clues. We're going to answer a question: what is Theodora's ultimate plan? Like, how does she plan on bringing down the crown? And that is going to be I think I decided the complexity is going to be 8, and I have, of your clues, I'm making basically 11 of them functional for this purpose. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. I also want to take a minute to check in with the characters too. We haven't had too much time with Septimus, and so I've got Septimus pretty well in my head because Septimus is still fairly new. But with the other characters, I really want to take a moment to sort of be reminded about your backstories so that we can ensure that for the finale we have a really good, like, we give every character like a really good send off. Like, we get to, even if we don't get to finish your Janus mask, we at least get like to have a nice punchy ending for your character. And so I'd like to do that as well. And so with all of
let's
that
clarify real quick,
said, yeah.
because it like we talked a lot about exegetic and diegetic APs this week when Wes and I was at Gen Con. This is a thing you would normally do. Like, this is a conversation you would normally have.
I
at
do
your
do this,
table.
yeah. I like to spend a session before the finale of a campaign just talking about where things are at and how we feel about things and where we'd like to see them go. I'm a big believer in that level of table talk, and because it just helps me kind of ramp up to make sure we get the best ending we can get.
I just want to
Right?
make sure people knew, like, this is not something we're doing for the stream, but just a normal.
Oh no,
party.
yeah. I mean, it's not like in the rule book or anything.
No,
This is how
but
I
yeah.
do it. This is what I
Yeah,
do. So
yeah.
yeah.
Game's not printed.
So I think what I'd like to start with, basically at a real basic level, I'd be curious to get just at a high level, like everyone's thoughts on what themes we explored in this campaign. Like, what do you think really came through from on like a thematic level, and how might or and like how did that like sort of express itself either in the characters or in the various threats? I think the biggest one is like life and death, but there might
I
be
was
other things I'm
literally
missing.
about I was literally about to say those exact words, Jason. So like that part has been I feel like that's the sort of and not to be punny, but like the between like the
Yeah.
spot between life and
Right.
death,
Yeah.
like the yeah, that this weird nebulous place where maybe neither exists.
Yeah. I think I think Knox's story is obviously a big part of that. Um,
But
a lot of the threats kind of dealt with
yeah,
that.
but I also loved, like, I mean, I think you also have a fairly immortal character who's defined that, right? But you have, even in Wes's or Langfisk's last letter, like, the concept of like taking someone else's identity, like dying and leaving behind an old life, seeing an angel appear, right, and then entering into a new life and a new like, has some really rich themes on that. We had a werewolf friend almost die,
Yeah.
die very
Oh,
early
the
on.
entirety of our beautiful werewolf friends arc, the base concept for our friend Tim, and this whole like demon child thing, but like trying to defy what people expected of you, like this dichotomy of that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of that as well in both of these characters that Vin has. So I think that's it's very well communicated throughout all of these characters, and with the threats of like the creature of Crimorn Gardens not being like actually bad, but it was like lonely, or like the fucking the lurker, the Limehouse lurker, that entire thing, that whole thing, um, was very thematic feeling.
I would say another kind of theme or a pair of theme in of itself is shout out to the band Bayside, but Devotion and Desire or Duty and Desire. I think like not even
Oh, that's
between
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
like Langfisk and Lord Grey, but Knox within himself of like the desire to want to like want to have like this just in the masks and everything, this kind of like life or something that Knox hasn't had, and is trying to bring back this childhood that Knox hasn't had, and kind of diving into the duty of like medical science and everything. Um, yeah, a little bit of that, I would say.
Yeah, and yeah, the interplay between the two, like with Lord Grey and Langfisk. I also think, like, again, some of the scenes with Periwinkle we got really early on, right? With um,
Oh,
with
What
Rick.
was going on with Periwinkle and Rick? Like, there was obviously like a, they had like this like physical relationship. I mean, that was pretty clear. But like,
Tell us.
what was kind of going on like underneath it? Do you think, Vin?
Um, I think it was just me really picking up what you were putting down in terms of like an NPC and like PC, because I was gonna slide with that desire hooking on gender and sexuality, because it hasn't been awkward. It's been a discussion, and it's been very lovely, especially like as an AP, as a performance.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like very shy. Everyone was honest, and we negotiated things. But running back to Periwinkle and Rick, it was a flirtation that just evolved. I was
Yeah.
happy to like run with it.
I thought it was really interesting that like, I mean, both characters, queer characters, right? Which I thought was interesting, and both characters like I got the impression that both characters were sort of like had been like trying to hide something, right? Because we saw Periwinkle like always in different costumes, always like, changing the way he looks. And Rick has in a couple of different ways is like manifesting this like, like I'm trying to like express myself, or in the case of like changing into a werewolf, I have like literal like no control over like what's happening to me, like. And so there was this sense of like of self-expression, of identity, but also of like the two of them like ultimately kind of finding each other in order to like get past all their hang-ups, or work through it. I don't know. I thought that was really interesting, and I don't know what it means like in the campaign from a thematic sense. Maybe it means nothing. I don't know. Maybe it's
No,
just
I
their
actually,
story. But
I think it actually does mean stuff. Unless Vin, I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh no,
You
no,
have
no. Like
something.
I
Okay.
agree. Like 900%.
I also like picking up on that. Like there has been. I mean, we talked a little bit about like there are like this is kind of a hopeful the between so far. Like Rick
a little
was
bit,
able to
yeah,
transform
yeah.
the child is a
Yeah.
good child. Like we've had those positive beats, and so like or those positive beats, those those made it through beats at least that I think have been really like a lot of just like touching and endearing moments that have come through. And I think that Periwinkle relationship actually really helped cement
Yeah.
some of that tenderness like very early on in play
Uh,
also too.
Absolutely. Like it's like that what you guys were talking about made me think of like what I just saw Levi say in chat. The line "Now we will watch over each other" with the factotum in play is fascinating, but also that's very Periwinkle and Rick, and it cements this sort of like despite the horrors we persevere, and even if we fail to survive it, we have attempted it.
Yeah.
We have tried. And also it is about like despite the horrors we are ourselves. And what does that even mean to be
Oh.
yourself? You
Oh.
know, like all of these characters play very much with identity and like how you're perceived versus who you are and that whole thing.
And that was a whole Knox beat. Like that was like I only had
Yeah.
a couple things written down at the very beginning, but one of them was who will watch me now, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
is there is really that observed, and even like we didn't end up with it, but like with that, I also feel like the Waitley camera getting pulled out, like has some real. I mean, like I don't know, but like it has some real strength with that getting pulled over to Theodora and what that all could mean from the other
There is
side
something
is
really
also really
there is something
intriguing.
really thematically interesting about Theodora getting control over this like central object in the game that is all about like capturing an image. It's like image. I thought that was I thought from a sort of like thematic standpoint it seemed really interesting that the mastermind would like have control over that.
Yeah.
Bison Stinger scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit because I think that probably has a lot to do with what her ultimate plan is. But
Ooh.
why don't we like talk about the characters a little bit then? So I think I'm really interested. This is for me. This is for viewers. This is also just for like us as a group. I want to kind of go through and like get a sense of where the characters like just kind of recapping their backstory from the Janus Mask, such as we know it so far. And here we can like loosen the normal restrictions about talking about your past. I'm okay if you want to talk a little bit more openly at this point in the campaign about where maybe things you foresee or whatever for them. That's especially true for Septimus because I feel like I want to know more about what's going on with Septimus. But um, one thing I can't remember, did the Coven come into play yet? The Coven
Yes,
was.
yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
The Coven, we saw the Coven dragging the Limehouse Lurker out of the house, right?
Yes.
Fought so hard for that lurker, and Jason's just
That's
drove him
right.
away.
I
And they
know. And I felt like enough
stole it.
time had passed. I felt like I could get away with that. Um, yeah, because we had already because we were already so deep into the campaign, I don't think I didn't want to introduce the Coven as a threat proper, but I do like the idea of them figuring into whatever the final confrontation is. I think that makes a lot of sense. But let's talk about Septimus. I mean, like, we don't know a whole lot about Tim, but like, Vin, like, what do you kind of think are like the broad strokes of like what's going on with this character? Where have they been?
Well, I just want to let you know that blurb was the thing that hooked me in the first place. Like, I've played a little bit of the Between, but that like lick, ugh, is what brought me in. I really didn't. I'm pretty nebulous because I didn't want to put too much into it because I didn't know how many masks I was gonna answer.
That's fair. Yeah.
But I did want to say, like, my whole little plot, when I did the Coven last minute, is that they're comprised of Tim's other 6 siblings, since he's the 7th son of a 7th son.
I like that very much. That's really good. I'm glad I know that because that helps me a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, Dad's a bastard, just sired kids for the magical capability and the tool.
That's good.
So powerful.
That's
Hey,
really
when
good.
you're a 7th son, you just got to churn for it. You got to be on that grind.
Yeah.
So we'll have to figure out like what they. I mean, they didn't just come to London so that they could help Theodora get the lurker. Like that's just incidental, I think, to why they're there.
Yeah.
Interesting. We'll talk about it when we talk about Theodora. I mean, let's go through the other characters, especially the ones we've seen more of their Janus mask. I mean, so Langfisk, like, what's the story?
So Langfisk is Joe Byrne, formerly known as Joe Byrne, the one of the members of the Ned Kelly gang, who Joe Byrne was shot in the thigh and bled out. And so I thought Langfisk just started as just a bush ranger, just a normal guy, and I thought I like tying uh actual historical people or like Penny Dreadful style characters into this game. I think one of the common items that I typically put is a map of Lilliput from Gulliver's Travels. Just because I just think that that's such an interesting item to throw in there. So I was like, what if I took a historical character and what if like that had died and tying it so close to like the factotum to the undeniable from the start, it would make sense for this guy who has been shot and like seen his best friends and potentially lover. The jury is out between Ned Kelly and Joe Byrne, but they were both young, handsome men out in the Australian bush, and the other member of the gang was Ned's brother. So to suggest that maybe, and Ned was not married or anything. So like to suggest or married. So like to suggest that like maybe perhaps they had a relationship. I had to bring that in there as well. But like this idea of this person that like lived a life of crime and a life of freedom, because that's very much like a life of in the mask, the factotum is it's a life of privilege. And I thought, what is a life of privilege in the Australian outback but to be an outlaw country where you are an outlaw, where like a country that is so like rigid and like held by like as a prison colony, to take that and like break the binds of that is a privilege in of itself, to experience living with like the Aboriginal people, the dreaming people, and to like what the Kelly gang did, which they lived amongst the Aborigines and everything. And it was like I just found it so interesting. And so I was like, yeah, of course this is somebody that had a past life, and so these letters are almost like confessions to that past life, and like a letting go almost. Almost when we see him like reading these letters, I didn't detail this, but I almost see him getting rid of them, like ripping them to shreds or burning them, because he's letting go of his life and he's giving it fully over to Lord Grey each time. And I liked seeing that, especially with his actions, because they're diametrically opposed, the actions, because throughout the game we see him almost kind of like getting further away from Lord Grey, but that's because the action that's happening necessitates that. And so, like, doing these things in order to protect Lord Grey, but to feel further away. So it's like, what is the best way to make sure that I stay focused on Lord Grey? Let me get rid of my past. And so he's letting it go. Yeah, Lord Grey found him out in the outback of the wilderness, like starving and almost dead. And of course, an angel, being such a pretty human being, an angel has come and saved me. And so, like, this is like redemption. And so, in some kind of, and Joe Byrne, the historical person, always had like a fucked up sense of religion. He was an addict. He was somebody that like really was an idealist as well. And so I wanted to take that and spin on it as well. And say that like somebody that has nothing is going to fully throw themselves at the feet of this angel and latch on to that. And that also ties into like why he is so rough around the edges and he has like so violent and he's so willing to go to violence is because it's that history in of itself. There is a mask that I probably will not mark, but it was chosen to mark, and I will give this as like a teaser because it won't happen. I refuse to mark this mask. But there is a mask of the future where you can erase your first two masks of the past, and you can change like you can change your history, like you lied about your history. And I was gonna make it that he was never Joe Byrne ever. He lied and he was just there during the shootout and he just took like he was just
Oh.
like just developed this whole sense. It was just a loser, a guy that was just like somebody that wanted to be that and never was. But I decided at one point that I feel like it would cheapen it almost. It would have been a last resort kind of mask to use. But we've gotten to this point that I think that like thematically and also narratively, it would not have made sense. But yeah, no, just this outlaw, this near dwell that has like found redemption is like I'm willing to do anything. And like even starting a criminal empire. Joe Byrne, in history was the only one of the Kelly gang that could read and could write and could do mathematics, and so it makes sense for the factotum to have this criminal enterprise where there's all these people working under him as well, and he's addicted to gambling and all these things, and so it's like this kind of thing. I don't know. It's been such an interesting journey to be on, and to like to have and to live with Langfisk, and like to take this historical figure who like I kind of look up to in a way, in like in a messed up way, but like somebody that truly lived free, and then what like I don't know. That's where I'm at with Langfisk. So that's Langfisk.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed Langfisk a lot, and I really think that like it also hits on those themes of like new life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it really does. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the angel then. Lord Grey,
What?
give us the story so far.
I I have to say, for one, this is having a factotum playing the undeniable for the first time, and somebody at like Wes as a factotum, a fabulous dynamic that has built a lot of Bastion's backstory. Like, I came in like, I'm gonna play this dude like the playbook. That's why I chose the last name Gray. This is Dorian Gray. That's why I've styled myself like Lestat and the Penny Dreadful guy. Like, that is, I was like, this is going to be a by the book undeniable. And then Wes Frank's Langfisk sweeps in, and I'm like, interesting. Interesting. So I think that's informed a lot. And I was like, when I was doing this, I was like, why would someone do this? Why would you choose to like accept? I obviously, like, I'm very familiar with the story of Dorian Gray, and I was like, why is he like this? What's wrong with him? Because I think there's a lot of that, and I think it's about the desperation to be liked because you don't really like yourself. It's needing outside confirmation that you are maybe not even good, but desirable, and building a life around being desirable by others because that's all that matters to you at this point. You've only built, that's how you get any sort of uh that's your only source of really like what's the word? It's not happiness. It's like, it's not self-satisfaction. What is the word that I'm losing? It's like this is the only way you can function at this point. This is the only way he can function at this point. I think he was sort of like one of those like poor little rich boys, like as in like his parents didn't pay attention to him. Obviously, that's kind of the vibe. But he's always kind of had a violent streak because no one stopped him from being like that, and he's just kind of like that. And it always kind of got rewarded. And then he found someone who would worship him in a more personal way, in a less, because all these people like worship him in a detached way, that he surrounded himself by sycophants, and like the people in Hargrave House are people that like know him. Huh, that's wild. But that's also kind of, that's desirable, because I think at this point all of those other people aren't people to him, and there's a very few handful of people that are people, and Langfisk is a people to him in the way a dog is a people to people, which is terrible to say, but it's like true. He's like a favorite dog. And a little teasing, because I don't think I'm going to get to probably mark all of these masks, like but he's a bad person, and I want to play him like a villain, and there's a reason I keep marking these reflection boxes, and a reason I haven't chosen the clear the reflection, because I don't think he's a good person, and I don't think he's someone who asks for redemption, and so, or maybe even deserves it. And I think that spoiler alert, because I don't think I'm gonna get to all of them, but definitely the person that he was in love with that we go through, Langfisk is like a perfect mirror of. So it's this whole like replacement like thing, like it's this misplaced affection, but now it's like a real affection because Langfisk actually gives a shit about him, and that's weird. But like he's not an introspective enough person to actually like put aside any of this bullshit to grow as a person.
Do you know what your relationship is, the two of you, your two characters? You are like 100% Selena Meyer and Gary from Veep. That is like 100% what the relationship is. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is.
This is our Veep AU.
Shout out all my Veep heads.
New stretch goal announced, the Between Beat.
So Veep AU.
No, it really kind of no, it kind of is like if Gary was not so pathetic and Selena Meyer was like, I don't know, like less bumbling, like it would be that, you know.
We're just the cooler versions.
Yeah,
we're the worst versions.
That's so great. Your Undeniable is so interesting because I feel like your Undeniable is I feel like we caught this character like when it's all getting ready to burst, you know, like you're barely keeping it together at this by the time we meet Lord Grey, which is so interesting because like other Undeniables I've run for, it's very like they are just like they're fucking irredeemable monsters, and like and they have no they're not vulnerable at all, and they are, and they you know, and that's not to say that like there's a better or worse way to play it, but like it's really intriguing to me how your Undeniable feels like they are like at the end, like they are there at the end, and I find that interesting.
I mean,
so,
there was a thing that happened the first couple of episodes where B also just kept on making horrible rolls and then just
just
fucking living with it. Like you were like, I'll be and I like the Undeniable feels like such a smooth, like savvy, like character class, and then B was willing to just be like, no, I've rolled horribly. It's just gonna sit.
Well, it's like Scott Dorward's Undeniable in that Ain't Slay Nobody podcast that we're doing. That character is like fucking untouchable. Like that character doesn't miss a beat, right? Like they are like they rule their world, and it's interesting to have these like two different types of Undeniables. It's really intriguing that are kind of active in my brain right now. Fantastic. Well, so that just leaves our most tragic but also sweet story in the game. In a lot of ways, I feel like Nox has gotten the most complete character arc, but what are your thoughts, Tony? Where are you at right now?
It's interesting because I think I've marked maybe Septimus has marked less, but I've marked only a very small amount of mass.
Yeah, you got through the child, right?
Yeah,
like,
so, like,
you got the same story through the child.
you get to
Yeah.
see a lot of that, but like I also
Mhm.
don't make a lot of rolls, so there's less like because
Yep.
so many of the mother's moves just happen. There's less of a need to make those types of rolls. So like it's really interesting to still have that in those narrative pieces built in and to see a lot. Um, but you just kind of miss some of the relational aspects. Yeah, I wrote down I think 3 things at the very beginning, and it was so Noxus Spectrum, and I think I've said this on stream already, but literally I was like picking my items before I picked my name because I like to build a character and pick a name last because that's how I do things. And I was like, what do yellow smoked glasses do? And they amplify low light, essentially meaning that it's easier for Nox to see at night. So Noxus Spectrum literally just means night vision in Latin, and my character has night vision. And then I was like, okay, that's funny. And that's a good bit, Tony, that you probably will not bring up because you're not that kind of annoying fucking player. And it doesn't mechanic like it doesn't do anything. So it was like, okay, cool. What can I do with that that's more interesting? And so it was like, wrote down like, whatever. And then I was like, I really just loved the idea of like Nox as a like the staccato rapping thing, right? The tapping, and I like it was really fun at the table for like bringing that out and watching chat and everybody else respond to that piece. But it was like they're immediately then in grounded like, okay, this is a character who is very scientifically minded but does things in a way that don't necessarily make sense to other scientists. He's already a little fringe even though he's incredibly skilled. I put composure as my primary stat, not reason. Like I didn't bump reason up. And when I was doing vocal test for Nox, he speaks a little bit more out of the sides of his mouth. The line I was using was really like, and I actually I think I used a part of it at one point when talking to either Theodore or somebody else about like, it's not that I'm the smartest, right? It's that I will essentially lean in for like Nox will lean in further than other people will lean in and not flinch. That he is willing to go further and push harder and try things that other people would pull back at. And that's also like then it trying to embody that at the table has like has really like I don't know how I felt about cannibalism until we did it the other day, right? It wasn't a line or a veil, and I'm totally capable of throwing that up, but I was like, it's never come up in play before, but I was like, no, Nox would be all fucking about this. And I talk a lot about like I love being able to follow my CFB character around, and Nox has been really fun to just kind of be like, I don't know what weird shit he's gonna do next. I just know these couple things about him.
I think this is, I mean, I'll say that like I've played with you many times before, Tony, and watched you play other games as well. And I think this is some of the best role playing you've ever done.
Thanks.
Like, but like truly, like I think that like something about the way you grabbed onto this character and just really dove into like what this character is about, like has really, really worked for me. And I guess what I'm most curious about is now that we have the child and now that like Nox has kind of completed that major like arc of their story, like where do we see like what would be like, I mean, I'm not saying this is how it's going to go, but I'm just curious like what you would consider to be like a satisfying resolution for Nox at this point.
It's really interesting because you do have the sense of like, and we talked a little bit about this, like there are 2 endings where the character dies and 1 ending where they live. And like I was originally intending like Nox will be here for a little bit, we'll make the role, child will get introduced, and then like I really enjoyed continuing to discover Nox also too. And there is a level at which like once the child exists, the function of why that is going to shift one way or the other depending on that die roll, but also like that's just functionally how the game works. So far, I think the only thing that has come to matter to Nox for the most part, though we've seen him sacrifice this even like a little bit, is hope becoming more complete. Like there's a level at which the attachment is like, cool, I'm done. But then like I think most people who are parents who have an attachment to their children, I use attachment because it's not always like a healthy attachment, like their desire even after having a child or as your child grows up is more for your child, and you realize there's never that ending, and there's a lot of toxicity that can exist in that space also too. But like he's become protective of Hope very early on. Like he's done a lot of out of character things like that he's done because she was in danger, right? Or potentially mildly threatened that he does not know how to deal with. And I think he has the memory of Charles in his mind as a big, strong, protective person who really did guide him through those things. Like Knox, without trying to not put her in dangerous situations, because he's certainly doing that, is trying to give her enough that should he die, that she would be able to continue on without him, like, but that she can keep on growing and be her own person. So I'm like, at this point, I'm like super not attached to Knox surviving, interestingly, where I was a little bit before and wanted that role to go well. But like really in service of, can my child continue to grow, and what are the pieces or things I need to give them that you can't just build into someone, that are essential for a parent to give a child.
Taking her to the cannibalism house party was
and having her assist in dissecting someone's body, but like in his mind, it's like there's it's almost like it's watching someone get unmade in the way that she was put together, right?
That's true.
There's a level of understanding between Sally and Knox that and this is where that toxicity almost lives. Like there's something between Sally and Knox that he is Knox is certainly like aromantic, like without a doubt, like he's asexual, like, but he has a fascination with Sally, had his fascination with Sally No Face that was very distinctively thing, and then figuring out how to be like, okay, how do I invite my child into that, like, and this is the only way that for him made sense, and because of the nature of Hope, like it doesn't really feel that weird to him. So like, I think it's going to be surprising what he thinks the things she needs are, but there's certainly a level of like protection right now and understanding.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
The world and not hiding from it, right? There's not like an intent to hide from it. Yeah, like, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, oh, it's nice if he dies protecting her. I don't know that I need that or want that necessarily. Like, this is not.
It helps me to know where your head is, though.
Right? Yeah,
it helps you know where your head is. Yeah, as far as like how to set things up.
I think he will take risks for Hope and for that desire for her to become a fuller person that he probably wouldn't take for anything else, and he will put both her and him in whatever situation he thinks will best achieve that. Especially if he thinks. Especially with that tendency to just lean in, right? Like he will take her with him, but also will desire to protect her in those spaces, I think. Yeah.
I love it. Well, are there any other questions or final thoughts about the characters before we start talking about Theodora?
I just want to say I love these fucking weirdos. Just
I know, me too.
13 out of 10.
Same. I love all of these
They're
fucking weirdos. That's like the only reason I've actually kept Lord Grey alive is because I love Langfisk and I don't want him to get retired. Not a joke.
That is one of the crueler aspects of the game as I've written it.
It's so mean. I love all of these people.
Let's talk about Theodora and the mastermind plan. So what I want to do is I want to review the clues, then we'll kind of take our first break. But the way I want this to work in the new edition of the Between, which I'm still kind of testing things out, but the way I basically want this to work is previously, as the game has existed up to this point, the mastermind clues were just a timer. You just got a certain number of them, and then that unlocked different aspects of the campaign until you got to the end, right? And what I would like for it to be instead is it'll still be a timer, but also I want there to be a question that is answered about the mastermind, which kicks off the confrontation with the mastermind, which is how does the mastermind plan to essentially destroy the British Empire, right? That's what their ultimate goal is. And now, out of character, that's probably honestly, I'm Team Theodora, but the character is absolutely one stopper. And so And so they're going to be tied to this question that you'll answer. What I haven't determined yet, which is not totally finalized, I'll have a better sense after I do some playtesting next month, is this question going to, like, will you just use the clues and just kind of come up with something together, no roll needed, or will it be an answer the question style die roll, which will have an effect on how the final confrontation plays out? We're going to try that out right now. So I've got 11 clues here that I am going to let you apply to the question, and I'll review them for you now. And for folks who are paying attention on Twitch, if you want, I will upload a screenshot of the clues into the Gauntlet Discord server so that you can also follow along. In fact, let me do that now before I forget.
I can also.
Okay, thank you.
I can make them up on the screen also too.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Well, let me review them here. Okay, so the first is that Theodora was encountered originally outside of 18 St. James's Street, and that's also connected to the first Stinger too, where she was clearly like monitoring the events going on at 18 St. James's Street. The next clue we have is that Mrs. Brathwaite shows a keen interest in both Mr. Miller and Lord Grey, and that could just be, oh, there's Hargrave House, they're doing interesting things, but I think it has more to do with like their natures that she was intrigued by. Elma, which is, if I remember correctly, she was the old lady who hangs out in Limehouse. Elma is wearing a small sapphire ring. She's been looking into the Limehouse lurker for Theodora, and indeed we know later that Theodora wanted control over the Limehouse lurker. Theodora offered Nock a place to do his experiments. I think that's a really important clue. Also because later on in the campaign, she was there when he brought Hope to life. She was or shortly thereafter, she was on scene, right? And then we have this letter on the sapphire blue stationery addressed to the judge. Theodora is intrigued by his ghost and is in contact with some very powerful mediums. That's a historical thing. She had an interest in spirits in the afterlife. The revelation that Theodora owned the Society Obscura building. Theodora was planning something with Sally, which she abandoned. Greco, the second-sighted boy, revealed that Theodora had learned how to contact the entity inside the Waitley camera. And of course, she also has possession of the Waitley camera. A woman wearing a large jewel showed up at the final performance of The King in Shadows and took photographs. That was Theodora. She was taking pictures with the Waitley camera at The King in Shadows. There's a tintype photograph, which is to be named.
Yeah, we get to choose what is on.
You get to choose what's on that one. Yeah. That's a roaming clue. Whenever you get ready to answer the question, you can say who's in that photo. And the final clue was Theodora has a glass coffin with Queen Victoria inside of it in her mansion. So, who knows what that suggests? We're going to find out. But it is a complexity 8. You have 11 clues. It's a lot of clues, but it's a complex question. I mean, you've got to come up with something cogent here. Chat, if you want to help us out, we would love that. We are going to take a break. I think maybe a 10-minute break here, Tony.
Sounds great.
And we'll come back and start talking about it.
And if you are not already following The Between, head over to ttrpg.link/BetweenGame to give it a follow over on BackerKit. We'll be back in just a few minutes. And we are back playing the Between and looking at answering the mastermind question in a totally different way than's ever been done before, mostly.
Well, there's never been one before.
I understand. I'm just saying. I didn't know how much you and Alex
So you are
play
correct.
tested it in your late night pizza fueled insanity.
Indeed. One thing I want to also say before we get too deep into this is I think that I don't want to forget also about the Coven being in London. I think that's really important context for whatever's going on here. So I just want to note that as well. Chat has a couple of thoughts. They are forming thoughts in any case. We might explore those in a minute. Who among you has a thought, my dear players, of what's going on with Theodora Brathwaite and how is she trying to bring down the crown?
Levi kind of started something that I was thinking about, which is transhumanism.
Okay.
The act of collecting the essence, the soul of somebody, and putting it into a proxy.
Okay.
Thinking that she might be using this and testing it with the Whately camera of drawing things from the other side and putting them into maybe the body of Queen Victoria to kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers her.
Yeah.
Like to put like this dark thing inside this fake Queen Victoria that's in a glass coffin.
Oh, so she
to
has like
swap
a fake one. Like
Yes.
yeah.
So the coffin one is the fake one that she's using to replace,
Mm.
maybe, is what we saw.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, that's a lot of where my mind I think has been also too. Whether this is Queen Victoria's actual body or not, or even if it is her actual body, is Theodora trying to make a place for something else to come? Like, is Queen Victoria in the empty dimension with the Whately camera, but her body is here, and something else is
Yes.
going to come back into
Well,
it potentially?
the thing is like in the time of the game, the Queen Victoria is still like she's not dead. Like
Yeah.
so like
No.
so who does Theodora have?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, but maybe she's missing, maybe she's, like, maybe people just haven't seen her for the last little bit. Maybe this is very
That's true too.
recent.
Yeah, we could absolutely say that she's been like out of the public eye for a while or whatever.
Yeah.
She'd be quite old this time.
Yeah.
So
But I think there's a lot of concepts also around, like, with Rick Miller, or there is like some death elements, but there's also like, what does it mean to be in control or out of control? Like, we hit upon that duty and desires theme, but like is this about inviting something else to take control of Queen Victoria real body or not? Right.
so that she can take over the empire.
And that she potentially, like, I also love like King and Shadows and the entity from the Whately camera have like really great fairy-ish vibes. Is there a deal that's been struck here? Is there an agreement that's been made? Does she have some sort of control over some of these things, potentially, like to have them come over, but really control and be the puppet master behind the throne?
Which really, like, that lines up really well with like what Septimus's whole thing is, which draws in the Coven, because this whole dark entities thing, there's a level of like possession sort of vibes with the vessel, pretty heavily, and I assume that's what the Coven fucks with, at least to some degree. And so they're clearly they're I like the idea of this weird sort of deal, or at least like an obligation to do this, or a real motivator that she has. I'm also fascinated with the idea, is this Queen Victoria or not, and have they kissed before in the past?
I do believe there was a rumor that we heard about that they were
Yes.
like when they were younger. That
Exactly,
there
like
was,
when they
a
were
little
young
thing.
ladies.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that,
Indeed. Why don't we start looking through some of the clues and see what might, like at least our sort of nascent theory here. I think probably straight away we can deal with Sally, right? It's probably not unreasonable to think that Sally helped her prepare this body, right, in the glass coffin.
absolutely.
And the glass cup and that clue also might be dealt with because we just generally know that whatever she's doing, the Queen Victoria, the simulacrum or whatever the hell it is inside this glass coffin is key to what she's doing. So I think those two are pretty well accounted for so far.
I mean, I think Sally was a great backup since Knox wasn't interested.
Exactly. And also the interest that she took in your work, Knox, is probably also connected to this, right?
Yeah,
She clearly has some sort of interest in like the physical body and
it feels very. We had to build a body, and we
Yeah.
did, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. I'm into that. Well, and also that makes it also just kind of ties up nicely because it also kind of explains the sort of professional admiration and interest that Sally and Knox took in each other,
Yeah.
right? You know, which I think is intriguing. So.
there was if we had better established in a backstory, there was a destroying a professional rival Mask of the Future to Mark, where I
Right.
destroyed a younger
Yeah.
Sally at school, but that never came up. It's a little echo.
That would have been
Oh
pretty
my
good.
God,
Yeah,
that's
I like
good.
that.
It's
I like
canon in
that.
my heart.
Damn, love it.
Okay, so those three clues I think are pretty easy to dispense with because we're just generally thinking that she's doing something with this Queen Victoria body that she got made or whatever.
Yes.
So now we just have to settle on what is the plan. What was she actually trying to do?
I mean, we
So-
again, like we have like body, and then we have like soul, spirit, ghosty stuff,
yes.
or entity stuff also too, right? So, because that, I mean, like, even like the Mr. Miller and Lord Grey, like how they are, the transformational aspect of it. But even like the Limehouse Lurkers, like immortality, there's almost just like those feel like and I don't know how much this, like those feel a little bit like failed pathway early inquiry, like, you know, like I'm interested in this information to see if it will fit what I want to do, but it's not necessarily what
I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense for Mr. Miller and Lord Grey for sure, right?
Definitely.
But she's circled back to the Lurker. I think the Lurker is still really important.
Okay.
I think
like,
so. That's why the Coven kidnapped.
Well, that's true.
him.
Yeah.
Like that feels like
Yeah, I think
We
the
gotta bring
Lurker.
that
I think
in.
the Lurker is really key to whatever she's doing.
Okay.
So
But yeah, then I think like for me, like intrigued in the ghost and in contact with some very powerful mediums, which could be the Coven also too, but maybe not. And then
actually, that clue might very well be who she was in contact.
No, that's
with,
what-
was
yeah,
the
that's-
Coven.
that would make
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah.
Actually.
And then contact with the entity in the camera, and even the performance of the King in Shadows.
That's the one that gets me. I don't know what to do with that.
Thoughts?
Now,
Okay.
I think this is, and I don't know how much, like, because we haven't solved the King in Shadows yet, correct? Like, we're still dealing with it.
Yeah, we have not solved it.
Yeah.
It's a little hard because I'm like, if I knew what the King in Shadows was,
Yeah.
and
Now
we'd
we're gonna
resolved it, I feel
retroact.
like we would have better information.
Well, the question for the King in Shadows, I don't even know if you have to answer that though.
Nope.
Let me
It's like
pull-
it's something about like how do we stop it?
Yeah, now that you've watched the play, your next question is what roles are you intended to perform in the play? And you resolve the threat by playing out the role in the play's next
God, I'm
performance.
so excited
So
about that.
there is no like what is the King in Shadows? There is no like destroying it. You're literally just
Which is really weird, 'cause didn't we work that into our answers for the question? Like us being variants of, I think, like, I mean, not that we
Yeah.
answered the question, but we did that in the previous question also too. I think. when we were
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah. So I think it's. I mean, the King in Shadows. We know what the King in Shadows is from the threat. I mean, that's been like established. That's established in the threat, which is that they are like it's basically like the god of death. It's Hades. It's
Right.
it's the occluded king, right?
So, what if her whole thing is not just like transhumanism, but it's like transdimensionalism, and it's like trying to tap into all of the powers of all of these like parallel dimensions that kiss against ours that are just kind of blocked a little bit, and the King in Shadows, the camera, Greco, the mediums themselves, ghosts, they're like these like tiny little portals into these dimensions filled with immense power.
I've got
Are ghosts not the remnants of those that have died in our world, but are ghosts just the shadows of possibilities from other worlds?
That's pretty cool. I
That's
don't
so
know.
fucking cool. What
God
you just
Maybe.
damn it.
That's so cool.
in the same way that if Jason had been born a few minutes earlier, he would have been Leonardo DiCaprio instead of Jason.
Hopefully with a better dating track record.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, that's so intriguing. I mean, there's this. Okay, so I guess like my question then is like, how does she plan on taking down the crown? Because that's always the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it does have to do with this harnessing. I think it's about this proxy still, and I think it's like she can't obviously just be like, I'm queen now and everybody be chill, because that would be bananas, you know. But I think that this has to do with utilizing this power to not just take down the crown and take over England, but to establish like an interdimensional powerhouse of like somehow like, or to utilize this or like what Wes said about all of these different possibilities. Maybe she's stringing together all of the different sort of like she's doing some time travel Marvel bullshit. Like
We'll make it multiverse. Let's do it.
Yeah, make it multiverse. Let's do it. I think that is like it's half form. Please, Vin, Tony, Wes,
So
save me.
I've got a slightly different swing on it, so maybe we want to keep on pursuing this one first. But I will say the crux of what I want to argue is she trying to get into the queen's body, and does she need to cross a veil and come back to get into the simulacrum? Like, does Theodora need to pull herself out of her own body and get into this queen body, and that's part of the deal?
I don't think Theodora would do that.
You don't think she'd do that?
No, because she is a woman who loves. She clearly loves her own body and herself and her and her money and her clothes and like. And Queen Victoria is so frumpy dowdy at this time.
That's fine.
I don't know, you know. But I do think there's something to be said about like her using this fake Queen Victoria. I really feel like there's something going on there.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm being silly, goofy, stupid. Another screwball out of here.
Hit us.
So are we saying that this Queen Victoria is like a fake or like
we haven't really
we haven't established.
No, we're bullshitting. We have no idea.
Yeah, we've suggested either that it's a fake that Sally helped her build, or it's the real Queen Victoria dead that Sally has helped preserve. So those are our two options.
Or I think we've also have empty because Queen Victoria's
like she's like
alive.
Yeah.
It's a preserved body.
She's been hollowed out. Yeah.
Oh God. I just want to go like kind of piggyback on B real quick and give a little sapphic spin. What if this possibility is them in their youth? Like taking both of them to a dimension where they can be young lovers again.
Oh, this is a romance.
So the glass casket is more like Snow White. Like,
well, I had in mind like Juan and Evita Perón, but I like Snow White also.
Don't cry for me, Queen Victoria.
I kind of love that. Then I love this. You read my mind. You read my spirit. This is like energy.
Amanda said Weekend at Bernie's Royal Edition.
Right. Oh my God.
This is so now that just adds a whole different perspective on things, right? Is she trying to revivify and indeed like recapture and even go to a different place with her lover so that they can have the romance that they were denied by the throne? I mean, that's intriguing.
Is that taking down the throne? Like, is that close enough to the question?
Even if she doesn't intend to take down the throne, I think it would.
Okay.
So
It undermines it.
Yeah, no, certainly, yeah. I just,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, or she's like, maybe it's a twofer. Maybe she does want to have this like romance that like society and
And
the
she wants
crowd
all
denied
power.
her. And of course, this is a woman who wants power.
both.
You can,
Listen, she can have
She's
both.
bisexual.
she can have both. She can have everything. She can have it all. She's
Exactly.
Theodora Brathwaite. She can have it all.
Like this sounds like something because she's like, if not full of hubris that earned hubris. To be fair, like
She's everything. We're just Hargrave House.
our job is
Our job is monster.
house.
our job
Our
is
job is
our
house.
job
Our
is
job
house.
our job is house.
Well, okay. So let's go back to the clues as ever and see if this makes sense. So, I think all the sort of like body construction clues all still apply there, and the idea of I'm gonna go back on the spirits clue for now. So she was clearly okay. So she's into ghosts, she's into spirits, and she's also like trying to contact other dimensions. I think it might be enough to say that ghosts, like Wes suggested, ghosts here are not necessarily like the dead. They are like echoes of another dimension, or maybe they're both, but they're definitely that.
Sons of another world.
And so that wraps up a lot. That right there wraps up a lot of clues. If we think she's trying to go to another dimension, that like a lot of clues get wrapped up in that one, right? You've got the King in Shadows, which is a play about accessing another dimension. You've got the camera. You've got I think the Society Obscura is part of that.
Yeah.
You've got her contacting these very powerful mediums who we think is probably the Coven. And we've got her interest in spirits and ghosts. It's all of them. I mean, well, no, it's not. It's not the Limehouse Lurker. That's the one it's not.
Limehouse
So okay. So
Yes.
Go off, Tony.
even if
Go off.
they're in another dimension, right? At this point, they are both later in life, right? But the question is, can they get to another dimension? I have a pitch on this for a 10-type photograph also too to be named when we answer the question.
Oh, there's that one as well. Yeah.
That would potentially get us there.
Okay.
But is the goal to get into a different dimension at a younger age and then to stay young forever? Which would bring in the Limehouse Lurker, right? Like
That's what she wants to know.
like
That
I mean,
also
I think
kind of
the
explains-
Limehouse Lurker
that explains her
has
interest in Lord
represented
Grey
Tony.
also.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That explains her interest in Lord Grey as well, because yeah.
They someone a fucked up painting.
Yeah, and so I mean I do think that's the most direct way to what are we opening Spotify for, Wes?
what is
It's
it?
a
So
It's a Jason Isbell song called "If We Were Vampires." It's very touching and sweet.
Oh,
I like
I've
that
got a
though,
song
Tony,
for
because
everything.
I like that because it suggests that her intense interest in the Limehouse Lurker is because she wants to know how to stay young
yeah.
and immortal. Yeah.
yes.
And even the body types and Lord Grey and I mean all those things I think do that.
It also kind of explains. It also kind of at least partially explains whatever she was doing with Sally, because remember Sally was really into like preserving youth,
Right.
or beauty and youth, right? Like that was her big thing,
Right.
and so
And maybe that was
maybe
the
s-
failure. Like Sally, like
that was the
this-
failure. Sally couldn't get couldn't make Queen Victoria look younger or
Right.
whatever, right?
Oh.
Yeah. It's so interesting. You gotta wonder who's actually sitting on the throne right now if she's been doing all this shit for so long with Queen Victoria's body.
I mean,
she's,
who
she's a
succeeded
very
Queen
influential
Victoria?
woman. I'm sure. Well, Queen Victoria is still on the throne at this time.
Oh yeah,
like,
but who in reality?
Oh, I think it was
succeeded her?
like it was one of her sons, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, she's
Andrew,
or George, one of the Georges.
because there was
I'm not-
9 of them.
I mean,
her
There
son
were a
Albert.
bunch, yeah.
Her son Albert says Amanda.
I mean, there's also the
Yes.
reality of like maybe Sally could have created a body, but not not a young body. Like,
Exactly, yeah,
The materials
yeah.
available were not,
I think that we've accounted for quite a lot of these clues. Let me just keep track here. So we've got we've got one clue remaining unaccounted for in this theory, which is who's in the photograph.
I know Tony had a pitch.
So I have a pitch. I actually think my initial pitch is, it is a picture of a picture. It is a picture of them at the age that she wants to go
Yes.
to.
Yes.
And it is intended to be a
Yes.
thing that allows them to access that
The
point.
way the entity in the camera is going to help her.
Is going to help
Yes.
them by manipulating
Oh,
time
good.
and
Yes.
pulling them to that moment.
And I also like the idea of the connection to the King in Shadows play is because there must be something about they're going to try to escape death. They are
Correct.
going to try to escape death. And this is like they have to, like, taking pictures of the play is almost like it's almost like pitting the entity in the Waitley camera
And
against
death
the occluded
against
king.
each other, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
out, boys.
like, yeah, exactly.
What is
Oh, it's
the-
really good.
What's the what?
Oh no, I'm thinking of
Well.
oh god. No, I'm sorry, I just had a brain blast. Sorry. Like of
Brain
the
blast.
possibilities of having
It's okay,
like
take
that
your
kind
time.
of like no, of just having those two entities fighting against each other. I was just like, oh god. This hypothetical woman in this hypothetical game, in this made up game, I was just like, no, you're I was just like, you're tempting fate, Theodora, stop. I'm like, you're not a real woman. I'm sorry.
Theodore, this is a bad idea.
Girl, you
Yeah.
need
Theodore,
to
no,
Theodora, no.
no.
Theodore, no.
I'm loving it. So okay, we did hint that they were like there were rumors. It's important context. There were rumors that she and Queen Victoria had like a little tryst when they were younger. That's a thing.
Yes.
And so we're suggesting that the conspiracy, what her plan is actually hearkening back to that. She wants to recapture the love that was stolen from her by the burdens of Queen Victoria's obligations, her crown, but also the fact that, Theodora was busy being a boss bitch, like doing what she's doing, like
Right.
being the second richest woman in the empire, right? And so they are not together. And so just to be clear, did Queen Victoria secretly die at some point and Theodora has the body, or is she like or did she, like, who's in the coffin? That's what I want to know.
I really like the idea that it's the real Queen Victoria, but I'm not married to it. I just think it's spicy.
I like the
just
idea. I
think
like the idea too. Like
it's
Theodora is
insane.
she's so rich and powerful that when Queen Victoria died, she was able to get the body and no one knew
And
that
here's
she
if
died.
this is, I mean, for me, if this is the capstone, like, did she was the only way to do this to kill Queen Victoria? Also?
Maybe. I
Like,
don't know.
I mean, yeah,
Maybe.
like, I mean, was she like, this is the last thing I need. It's your body.
Yeah.
What?
I also
What
wonder,
if
was
it's like
Queen
my
Victoria
favorite-
in on it? I don't know.
Yeah. Was she in on it?
What if it's like your favorite what, Wes?
My favorite Batman villain, Mr. Freeze, where he's
Oh
got his
yeah, it's
wife
a Freeze
trapped
vibe.
in a
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
I'm
my
gonna keep you
God.
trapped in this glass coffin until I can bring you back or something like that.
Oh,
this
I love the idea
this
of
stasis.
It's so Snow
she has an
White.
imposter Queen Victoria on the throne.
On the throne.
Yeah,
That
the real
valley
Queen Victoria.
face.
The real Queen
Yes,
Victoria
yes.
has been exactly. The real Queen Victoria has been in like this stasis or whatever she's in this glass coffin, and her plan then is she's gone through several different plans, but this current plan is to go to another dimension in order to refine their youth and then become immortal forever in their young state. I also really like the thematic connections to the Waitley camera because, taking a photograph is all about preserving a moment in time, right? So there's something like that that's really, really relevant. How intriguing. I like it. I think it's really, really cool. Does anybody else have any thoughts? This is a really good theory.
we're all really smart and good looking. Way to
We're all
go.
very
Way to go,
Yes.
team.
Thank you, thank
yes.
you, thank you, thank
Somebody
you.
has to roll though. It's going to be +3.
Well, this is an incredible theory.
It's an easy roll. +3. Who wants to do it?
Just let chat roll. Come on, chat. You get to make this one roll.
Tony,
Yeah,
it's your
yeah,
channel.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, Tony, it's your
That
channel.
seems dumb.
I ain't doing
Okay,
it.
so we all roll a half of a die.
We're all gonna roll a D3. That won't change the stats at all. No, I'll roll
Yep.
it. That's fine. That's a 3.
+3.
Yep, and that is another 3, so that's a 9.
So you're correct. Why don't I'm going to suggest that you all bump it. You can all
Yes.
mark a mask to bump it up.
Yeah.
I will mark a mask.
Make it a flat 10, so it's real clean and correct. If you mark Janice mask, why don't we take a 5-minute break? We'll come back, narrate your Janice masks that you just marked, and then we'll be set up good to go for the rest of the campaign.
I would have let you roll it, Amanda, but too late. We already did it. We'll be back in just 1 minute to narrate some masks and keep on playing the Between. Or have you, Chaotic? And we are live again, ready to celebrate Wes's birthday here on Plus One EXP by narrating some masks.
Who wants to go first?
Tony, I
I'll-
think that
okay.
means you. Okay, go ahead.
I'll go.
Do it.
All right. Quiet on set. No. I went ahead and marked a Mask of the Past. Narrate a flashback to when you were more of a family member to your employer than someone of their own flesh and blood. My dearest Ned, I come to you with a grievance, with a complaint. I cannot utter this anywhere except for in these hallowed pages. The Lord aims to kill himself. The Lord aims to put himself in trouble, themselves in danger. At first, I thought it was just mere dalliances with fate. But now, as I can tell more and more, it's to put harm into thee. Or maybe it is to harm me. Maybe for a slight that I had committed long ago. A few years after they had found me, I was traveling with him and his family. We stopped in a small village with a castle overlooking it in Europe. I thought that perhaps we might have been visiting for a holiday, but in fact, it appears that we were visiting family. The Lady Grey was a shrewd woman, bird-like, thin neck, glaring eyes that could see past you, see past your own features into your own soul. It was a nominal visit. Wide, empty dining rooms filled with just the two of them and as much food as you could carry to the whole village, barely touched by the likes of them. Strolls through the gardens, dead. Time spent riding horses, feeding upon offal. Not much else. One evening, I heard arguments, shouts from a chamber. I went to go check upon the Lord, and I was met by that woman, tears in her eyes. She looked me dead in the heart and she said, "I've had enough. It's up to you now." I had entered inside the chamber. A mess. Torn pillows. Books and journals scattered askew. Flames roaring from the fireplace. And I could see him. Not this vision of an angel that I had seen in that desert, but something small. Hunched over a vanity. They looked upon me, makeup streaming down their cheeks, tears welled in their eyes. Their hands and their arms had looked as if they'd been cut by some kind of glass storm. He looked into my eyes and said, "How could anyone love something as wretched as this?" I took the time to tend to his wounds, to care for him, to calm him down, to get him some tea, to make sure that he was clean. He would look past me and tell me how good I cared for him, how much I cared for him. I made mention that it's not fair to you how that woman treats you. Someone as precious, as powerful as you. Like a gas lamp immediately being lit by a wick. The Lord turned on me with rage, anger in his voice, and said, "Don't you dare say things about the lady of this house like that. Don't you dare say things of my mother like that." He threw things at me and pushed me away. I was confused. I was angry. I was in mourning. I thought I'd lost him. The next morning, when I awoke to take care of his things, bring him breakfast and tea, and get him dressed, he'd acted as if nothing had happened. No mention of it. Just looking forward to the adventures that the day had for. Maybe this is my punishment for that time. Your dearest, Joe.
Well, I usually don't volunteer masks, but it only feels right because this this one is vaguely related. Um, I've also marked a mask of the past. Uh, and I'll tell you what it's about after I narrate it. It's the night after Cecil's death, and Bastian is walking down the gaslit streets of London. He's alone. He's not looking where he's going. He's in his own head, the sickening thunk of Cecil's body hitting cobblestone playing on loop. He's not looking where he's going. He steps out into the street, and someone grabs his collar from behind it, jerk him back onto the walkway, narrowly saving him from being trampled by a hansom cab. But no one touches him without permission. This doesn't happen anymore. And he whips around to demand this person explain themselves, apologize, grovel at his feet like everyone is supposed to. And if this were a movie, this man would be played by the same actor as Lang Fisk, and he does not look ready to grovel. Bastian doesn't care. He immediately spits, "Who do you think you are?" And the man tips his head like Bastian just said something slightly amusing. "I'm the bloke that saved your life. You ought to be thanking me." And this is a narrative flashback to when you first met the person you fell madly in love with.
At the end of the day, we see that Hope has picked up just a number of scrapes and bruises. We see Knox pulling a somewhat long piece of glass out of her forearm, packing it, stitching it, dropping it off to the side. The glass kind of breaks as it hits the bottom of the metal pan. In that same moment, we flash over to a monocle looking at a young teenage Knox, face clenched in rage, as a fist flies up and smacks straight into the monocle, shattering it. Young Master Knox, no. Tell me the truth. Tell me. Tell me it happened. Master Knox, I can't. I can't tell you what happened because it didn't. Tell me the truth. I know it. I know you loved her. Master Knox, it wouldn't have been proper, and it didn't happen. Knox reaches up to try to punch Charles again. Charles grabs him, spins him around, pulls him in close. I'm not your father, Master Knox. I loved your mother. I loved your father. I love you. I love your family. But I won't ever tell you something that isn't true.
So we find ourselves back at the theater with Tim and Langfisk. The two have stumbled out, still trying to discuss the play and whatever just happened. And usually Tim is quite chatty, but he's gone quiet because the voices that are accompanying his person are so much louder. And one in particular.
I don't understand. What happened to drama? Where is drama? Drama never existed. You want to see drama? I can show you drama.
And then just cackling, screaming on and on until this full force overtakes him. And this annoying spirit grabs him by the arm and twists it.
This is drama.
And throws them to the ground. And before the violence could really ensue, Tim has a full body spasm to expel whatever disgusting creature who really just did not like the King in Shadows.
I mean, can't blame them. The play is terrible. Fantastic. Thank you all so much. That's us for tonight. We can do stars and wishes, I guess, kind of. I don't know if I have any other than just, I loved all those masks; those were terrific. But also I'm just really excited that we now know what Theodora's up to. Even just on the break, my mind was firing off with ideas of like, oh, this is what I think is going to happen. This is how I'm going to set this up. This is how I'm going to get the Coven involved and the Lurker, and it's all going to be great. So yeah, I'm really excited by this final confrontation, because I think the key for the final confrontation is going to be ensuring that you all still want to stop Theodora, even though what she's trying to do is kind of sympathetic in a bizarre way. So yeah, I'm just really excited. I'm glad we got to have this conversation tonight. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yes. Can I? Oh, go ahead, Tony. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm a yapper, and I just wanted to start everybody's masks. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Vin, I love that voice. Got my ass. Vin Vox VA over here doing the gremliniest gremlin I've ever heard, and also twisting it like this is drama. That's just so good. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a minute. That's really fun. It's so fun. I love it. Tony. My heart. I love this saga of the relationships between Knox and Charles, yes?
Yeah.
I get so swept up in the story. I have a very vivid image of this man, and I forget his name sometimes. And but I'm like, I know who this is. It's so good. So good. Oh my god, I love it. I love him so much. Wes Franks, thank you so much for understanding this horrible little man in such a way that like you can everything you've incorporated into masks that I'm like, yep, that's it. That's exactly right. 100%. Like, yeah, he would do that. Like I have to say, like, it is so lovely to be able to just be like, yes, take him. Do it, whatever you want. It's gonna be correct and right and true. And I just 10 out of 10. That was perfect. And also just God, knowing the whole backstory now, it's so heartbreaking about the letters. Like I'm like, oh, he's gonna rip it up now. This poor man has no one to talk to. Just no one. And start Jason, I want to star this whole session and this particular keeper tactic of like we all got together and talked about the story arc, the character arc, the mastermind arc. I think that's a really cool thing to do. I really, really like it. I think it makes for a really interesting story, and it makes I don't know, it's really cool to be able to be involved in the climactic action of the story in such a direct way, and also getting to hear everybody's like sort of, this is my idea for my character arc. Like, that's really cool. I really liked getting to hear all of that, especially if we're not going to get to hear their masks. I'm like, yes, tell me. I could listen to each of you give a little TED talk about your characters, and Jason about Theodora and her whole thing. So yeah, I just wanted to start that this is a really cool thing to do, Jason, and I really thought it was fun.
It's a good clips episode vibe, but not the shitty version where you're like, it's the clips episode where they made up new clips and mixed them in with the old clips. And then we're like, here's some clips that don't even matter on the side, but we just wanted you to have them. Yeah, it does. It does a good feel. I really enjoyed it. And B, I know you said you were nervous. Excellent. Way to throw it out there on the accent also too.
Thank you.
But
So glad.
it has been super fun to watch the way y'all's masks have started playing into each other's. It's been incredibly enjoyable to see also too. Like, it's super good. The stars to chat also too for kicking in on a lot of different things and having some good group brain with us also too. Yeah, it was fun to get to like a little bit of insight into everybody's kind of thoughts and approach for their characters. And also, Vin, I loved you like grounding it back in the time, like the theater moment for the King in Shadows also too, and kind of bringing us back to that place. And your mask was a really good, like, nice one to end on specifically.
Yeah, it gets us right into the next session, right?
Right back into So I mean that
like a director did it. Like, oh,
yeah, the two of you going, having the Knox, and then like being able to pop back into like, here's where we're at, is super enjoyable. Jason, I'm also just I love the tech. I think it builds really well. I'm really interested to see where it goes in your final version, like the answering the question piece of it, how it all kind of plays out. It felt really fun. It also was nice because like you were able to assert a couple things about like how Theodore is and who she is. That then also like once you were like, oh no, I don't think she would leave her body. I'm like, okay, cool. Then like where does that take us also to? And getting a little bit of that sense of a little bit deeper of a sense of who she is, other than this malicious like or threatening force to each of us. I think was really interesting also too. So yeah, I'm super excited for next week.
I really like the turn that the answer question took, because it was like I thought what we were coming up with was really good, and I was really liking where it was going. But then like Vin's suggestion about the romance like actually kind of made it all work, like, because it also connected up nicely with like things that we had just talked about when we were talking about the themes of the game. Like, we had just talked about like about Periwinkle and Rick, and we had just talked about like sort of like this idea of like lives lost and like refinding new life and all that stuff. So I thought that just really was great.
Yeah, that and the West bringing in that thread of like maybe these are echoes, right? Like these are other, like, that was super super good. I think my only like I'm excited to see, like, because it does feel very sympathetic. Like, is there a cost? Like, even if we know what she's trying to do, like, is there something that makes it
there
non-desirable? Other than
I have
like,
some thoughts. Yeah,
great.
like you'll have to stop her. Yeah, you're gonna have to stop her, even if your characters would be sympathetic.
Yeah,
like they will have to stop her.
But I'm very interested to see what your twisted brain comes up with, also too. So.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Benar dropping the L word, lesbians on stream. It's fantastic. Good stuff. Good stuff. We're at that point. It's good. Ben, I like I like the context that you've provided for Tim. That kind of like when your explanation, because it helped frame and like solidify my idea of Tim in my brain. And like the fact of like having like the seventh son of a seventh son kind of thing. It's just like, it's very of the vessel I want more of Tim. I want the spin-off. I want the Septimus spin-off of the Between. Make a solo journaling
The
game where
Between
it's just
Seventh Son.
yeah, Seventh Son. Yeah, the Between Seventh Son. It's just a solo journaling game of like the specifically Septimus. Um, Once again, brilliant mask, Tony. I have to echo what Jason said earlier that I think I've played a game with you and I've also watched you play other games and I think that this is like you are the most locked in with Nox and I don't know if it is the amber glasses, the night vision, or if it's the hat or what, but like there is like a change in you when you put them on and you're in it. Uh, um, and like Jason, kudos on the mastermind question and everything like that. Like this is is this the first time it's been done on screen that you
This is
that
the
you
first
did
time I've
one?
done it. Period. Yeah. I've never-
Period.
yeah. Like I just.
Number one.
Yeah, this is it. This was the first mastermind question to get answered. Yeah.
There-
I liked it though. I thought it went great.
It was fun. It was
Yeah. Yeah, there's especially with like last episode too, like there's been such interesting like changes to play form with this game than what I'm used to, and then like what's in like the original text of the Between that you can get on Drive Through RPG right now. If you just go to ttrpg.com and you search the Between, you can go ahead and get that, and you can get a bunch of other content, or you can just wait to the back.
It's all free.
It's all free. Just go
Yes,
for it.
go
Just
grab
go
it.
for it. Grab it. Just grab it right now. But like it feels so different, but like so of it. It feels like it's the most uh the iteration that makes the most sense, I guess. The next
This
step
was like
in
the
evolution.
this was like the middle of the transformation, this campaign.
Yeah.
Like we caught it in the middle of like what it's
Yeah.
gonna be. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just and I can't wait to take this and like because like I've got assholes on Twitter right now tagging me to run a game of the Between for them and a bunch of other ones, so I'm gonna have to like utilize these rule sets and everything for this for a bunch of near do wells. But no, it's great. It's just great. Y'all are great. This is great. I'm gonna miss Langfisk when he eventually dies, when he sacrifices himself.
Also, Wes, real
Uh,
quick, it's your birthday tomorrow.
Yes.
Is there any place that tomorrow on your birthday, if people wanted to go buy something or support something that would directly benefit you, is there anything they could do along those
It-
lines?
if there's one thing that you can do for me and my birthday, and what it is you can directly support my work. You can directly support something that I've created. I created it and released it in January, and there is a birthday. It's a lovely birthday gift. I'm calling it a birthday gift. It was just when I hopped on a zine feed for Zine.Club, I was like, let's get some pitches from creators and and I've got my game, but let's not do that because that I don't know if that feels weird or not. And then immediately Egan and Tony and Sarah were like, no, fuck that. Let's publish
Let's just
your
make
game.
let's just print your
Let's
game.
just print your game, and then like it's already ready, so let's just do it in August. And August is your birth month, so let's just do it for that. So yeah, if you want to go right now, you can do two things for me. You can go to @+1exp and the tweet that's at the top. You can go ahead and retweet that thread that describes what your releases are for this month. You're getting 3 zines if you sign up for Zine.Club right now, and you get all the zines. And what you can do is you can go to RPGZine.Club and you can sign up, and you can be able to interact with me directly. And you can have each month zines delivered right to your door or right to your email inbox, including for this month, my game. Which is This Old House. It's a GM-less game for 1 to 4 players that uses the act of building a house of cards to tell the story of just that, a house. All you need is a standard deck of cards, a D4, and you use the prompts inside to tell the story of the home, the family, and the things that inhabit it. It is a labor of love. It is my first like independent, like I just kind of made it and put it out there game. I was inspired after PAX Unplugged, and I was just like, looked at my partner. I was like, I'm going to do this. I did it. And so like you can go ahead, and if you don't want to sign up for a club membership, which kind of lame, then you can just go directly to the website when it goes live, and you can buy it directly from Plus1EXP.
We'll have it live
that kind of
tomorrow
thing.
for your birthday. Also,
For
too,
tomorrow for my
pre-sales
birthday.
also.
Yeah. or you can just send me money.
You just send Wes
or
money.
You can,
That works.
Or you can, you can do whatever you want. Do something nice for yourself.
Send Wes
It's
money.
It's Friday. It's not often that my birthday falls on a Friday, so go ahead and do something nice for yourself as well, and that'll be a great gift. And let me know, and tag me in it, and let me know, and tell me what you did nice for yourself as well. Yeah, that's me. I get weird.
I'm gonna go watch Firestarter for your birthday at the draft house. So.
Yes, yes. Shout out Drew Barrymore. Perfect. Yeah, that's me.
All right, I'm throwing my stars. I'm pew, 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 and breaking it apart and sprinkling across you lovely folks. Just going across the screen. Tony, how dare you? That was such an amazing mask. It felt like the season finale in the mini drama that is Nox's life. It was very nice, and it just broke my heart into a million pieces. And then you got these two chuckle fucks with their tag team masks that I can't stand. I can't believe I got my Victorian Yowie socks rocked off with these two. Just shaking my head. I'm not catching it this time. I'm catching it. Jason, thank you for having us. And I love this, this time to integrate everyone's thoughts and collect. I don't know how I would integrate that into my own things, but I'm going to find a way because I found that really nice and making sure everyone knows where we're at and where we can go. So there's no miscommunications and no not necessarily regrets, but longing in at the end of a campaign. Well, I wish this happened, I wish that happened, but we didn't communicate that. So that was amazing. Geez, golly gee willikers, y'all. Again, great session. I love the mastermind question, and I love you guys. So yeah, that's me.
Love it. Awesome. Is that everybody?
I think that's it.
All right.
I do want to give an announcement. I don't think it's been completely announced yet, but if you want to see me run the Between, I'm going to be running the Between on August 21st and 28th.
Oh, is that for Pigeon Killers?
The Pigeon Killers, yeah. We confirmed the date and everything. So catch us on the stream. I'll have more details on my Twitter, but the Pigeon Killers is a fucking dope group of ttrpg actual players. And I am so honored to be able to run the Between for them and throw my own spin on it. So check that out.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you have not yet, head over to ttrpg.link/BetweenGame. Sign up to get notified when the Between Kickstarter goes live. Get more amazing Between content. And I can't wait for it. I'm super excited about it. I think Between was the first game we had Jason come run for us here on the channel before we did Brindlewood Bay even.
It's a long time ago.
It's been great. It's been great to return to it and get to play this full piece with y'all also too. Very, very excited to have everybody with us, but we will see you. Are we taking a week off again? What's the plan, Jason?
I plan on being here next week.
Being here next week. Awesome. Cool. I saw a bunch of dates get thrown out and the whatever. So we'll be here next week and then we'll be back again playing the Between.